My name is Steve Ramos. I'm the Water Resource Manager for the City of Corpus Christi. So in the past year, 2018, the City of Corpus Christi moved forward with looking at a seawater desalination plant in the coastal bend. Currently, we started looking at basically two large areas within the coastal bend. We refer to it as the La Quinta Channel area and the Corpus Christi SIP Channel. We are currently going through siting and permitting for a desalination plant in our area, looking at those two particular areas, then whittling it down to specific sites, and then eventually going to from candidate sites to potential sites to actually two site locations. We're working through those candidate sites and the potential sites. We presented it in front of the City Council on January 22nd exactly where we are in this process. We've worked through our potential sites, and now we're going through our candidate sites, and in that we are looking at defining exactly what the definitions would be to evaluate these sites. And so when we're at these potential sites, this is where we start doing the critical analysis to determine, what is the power for this particular site? Does it meet this environmental conditions? What possibly would be the characterizations of the water quality that we're looking at? So we take those definitions that we use for those particular categories and then whittle it further down into approximately about 5 sites. And then that's where we would get into the actual working on the ground to answer those hard questions. What are the water characterization quality like in this particular area? What are the environmental social issues that we could be needing to know more about and do our due diligence, so that when we get to the final 2 sites, we've answered all those kind of questions. And the final 2 sites, we're confident that we can build or apply for a water rights and a tip D's discharge permit with the state of Texas. The permit process takes approximately a year, depending upon different issues that occur in that process. It could take longer. So yes, we need to do our due diligence now. And we're looking at getting to that 2 sites and applying about the 3rd or 4th quarter of 2019. We're on schedule. We're moving forward right now with the project. This area is growing. This community is growing. The potential for our coastal bend is growing, and so our water supply needs to grow. The City of Corpus Christi approximately serves around 500,000 individuals, large volume users, etc., and we need to provide for our future. We need to also diversify our portfolio of water supply. We are a surface-based water supply source. We have 4 sources. From the Nueces River, we have Choke Canyon, Lake Corpus Christi, and then from the east, we have contract water that we buy from Lake Texana, and then further east, we have water that we bring through the Mary Roads pipeline, also from our water rights on the Colorado River. Saying all that, they are all surface water-based sources. Learning from the recent drought of record that affected this area and the community that we live in, we needed to look at providing a drought-proof water supply. So the City of Corpus Christi, through many years, has been looking at desalination in this area. In that time frame around 2013, 2015, there was a hard look at the feasibility of a seawater desalination plant. And this project, the City of Corpus Christi Seawater Desalination Project, is the evolution of all these steps. It's an alternative source that would provide us with sufficient amount of water to move into the future and provide that reliable, dependable water supply that could take us into the future. It is not that we don't need it, or it's that is a when we talk about this reliability, this drought proof, it is the backbone of our supply. I go back to, we're a growing community. We have a lot of interest in our area, and we're growing. So then, therefore, our need for water is growing. So it's a combination of both what you're describing as a reliable, dependable source, and when we're in drought, we can draw from it, but it's also a source that we need to expand into. We have approximately, in 2017, we used about 59%, say 60% of our water supply. And then looking at our projections into the future with oncoming large volume users and growing supply in our area, we could potentially go into the 70% of our safe yield, our demand. So is there a need for it? Yes, there is a need for it. And then also there's a need for expanding into a drought-proof water supply. So we're not out of water. I don't want to give the impression that we don't have enough water supply, people. But we need to do the planning and the due diligence right now, and that's where we are. It's not that it's dangerous. We'll have a supply, but it's that time that we need to take to really look at planning and be prepared so that the elected officials can make that decision to build or construct that plant at that time. But that's where we need to set up so that they can have the best information, this community can have the best information at hand and be able to prepare for its future.
Can you give us a rough idea of what it might cost us to build a desal plant?
That I could not, because of all the nuances and variations on construction and building to get to that exact cost. But what I can say is we will cost and how it's going to affect our customers at the end of the day is why we're doing our due diligence right now, why we're doing the permitting and how we're going about doing this particular project, because it's all about taking the risk out, which then lowers the overall cost of water for our customers. It's about attraction for the whole community. It's providing for a reliable, dependable water source. If I had 100,000 new homes come into our area, I would need to provide a reliable, dependable source for those 100,000 new homes. If I have a company that comes in and uses that same amount, it's a responsibility for us as a wholesale water provider to find that source for them. So Corpus Christi is different than most cities in the state of Texas. We go through, we don't have a nice kind of population curve where we can plan for population growth based upon our water supply. We have a tier step kind of thing. We have these large volume, large customers that come in and bring a lot of people with them, bring their needs with them, and so we need to supply for that. And it can happen like the next day or the next in 5 years, 8 years, and so on. So we need to be prepared for those situations. It's about attraction for the whole community. It's providing for a reliable, dependable water source. If I had 100,000 new homes come into our area, I would need to provide a reliable, dependable source for those 100,000 new homes. If I have a company that comes in and uses that same amount, it's a responsibility for us as a wholesale water provider to find that source for them. So Corpus Christi is different than most cities in the state of Texas. We go through, we don't have a nice kind of population curve where we can plan for population growth based upon our water supply. We have a tier step kind of thing. We have these large volume, large customers that come in and bring a lot of people with them, bring their needs with them, and so we need to supply for that. And it can happen like the next day or the next in 5 years, 8 years, and so on. So we need to be prepared for those situations.
When might we have a desal plant?
That's again, we will.
I know there are variables.
It's variables.
Let me ask it a different way. How soon could we have a desal plant? We
could potentially, if everything, we go through the permitting process, would take about a year. Again, we would be finishing up at the end of 20. After that, construction may, and I'm not an expert on construction and time of construction, so maybe a year, 2 years after you would get permits. If you were to pull the trigger and the decision makers would make that decision, then it would just come down to getting the permits and then about a year, maybe 2 years of construction for a facility.